If a well-known local landmark building sits on a cliff top in an area prone to landslides, then when that bit of land falls away into the sea, how is it possible that that building could still be standing? I've returned to a place that I last visited when I was 11 years old, and in doing my research I've discovered that there are so many fascinating things to tell you about this incredibly beautiful place. I also want to tell you about what happened here when I was 11, because it wasn't plan A, that was for sure. So anyway, this is Kimmeridge Bay, and it's in the county of Dorset on the Jurassic coast, and we're going to take a stroll around it and have a look at the incredible beauty as we go, and I'll fill you in with some of the stories that I've got to tell you as well. Now, I thought I'd start up here near the Nodding Donkey, and I know if you're looking for an actual donkey, you're not going to find one here. Beneath the seabed here, there's an oil field, and what you see behind you is an oil pump pumping that fuel up, and they're commonly known as nodding donkeys. Well, this type of pump is commonly known as a nodding donkey, for reasons you can probably work out for yourself. Now, I remember walking past this as an 11-year-old boy with my dad, and even then it seemed like a relic of a bygone age. So to see it still working today is really quite nice. On that day, all those years ago, my dad and myself were on our last day of walking on the coast path here in Dorset, and we were hoping to find a campsite in Kimmeridge and a shop to buy some food for dinner. The previous night we'd camped in just an ordinary field, and it's the first time I'd ever not camped in a proper campsite, and I didn't enjoy it, to say the least, because I spent the whole night worrying that the landowner would turn up, order us to pack our stuff up and leave his land. So I really didn't want to do the same thing the following night, and my dad assured me that there would be a campsite in Kimmeridge. Unfortunately there was no campsite, although there was a small shop. Unfortunately the shop was closed. So after studying the map for a bit, my dad decided that we'd divert inland and hopefully find a campsite or at least a shop in the nearby village of Steeple. Unfortunately, on arrival at Steeple, we discovered that pretty much all it consisted of was a church. Interestingly, without a steeple. I'm sure there's a story behind that, but not one for today. So anyway, we pressed on towards the main town of Wareham, and unfortunately that was too far to reach for that evening because it was already beginning to get dark. So we ended up pitching our tent in a farmer's field again, and went to bed with pretty much no dinner. Not my ideal way of spending the evening, that's for sure. To be fair though, that evening did leave me with one magical memory. As we were walking the road through the forest, it was dark, and apart from the sound of the odd passing car, all you could hear was the sound of the owls hooting to one another. I'd never really heard owls before in real life, only on horror movies when they always seem to startle people. But this wasn't scary at all though, and in fact I felt very privileged to be walking along and listening to their conversation. Let me tell you about Kimmeridge Bay. Firstly, if you're going to come here in a car, then you need to know that it's going to cost you £6 just to enter the village, and if you're in a camper van or a motorhome, you can double that. But don't just turn up here for half an hour or so, it wouldn't be worth it. At low tide, the beach here is one of the best you'll find for a rock pooling, and they claim it's the safest place in Dorset for snorkelling too. I guess that means paddleboarding and kayaking is very safe here too. beach here is renowned for finding fossils, and it doesn't take much of a walk down there before you start finding them. I should point out though, it's forbidden to take any away from the beach, but personally I find just seeing them where they belong is fascinating enough. I say it's renowned for fossils. A subsection of the Jurassic period is actually named after this place because fossils from the Kimmeridgian period are so prevalent here. Even the great David Attenborough has gotten in on the act. His recent show, Attenborough and the Giant Sea Monster, was following the excavation of a Plosaur skeleton, I think I said that right here in Kimmeridge Bay. The Plosaur itself can now be seen in the Etches Collection Museum in the village.
Right, down we go. Hold my hand.
Now, to the tower. Rapunzel. No, not Rapunzel, just onwards and upwards again. Hello you. Behind me is Clavell Tower. It was built by the Reverend John Richard Clavell in 1830 as an observatory and folly. It was a regular haunt for the famous Dorset writer Sir Thomas Hardy, and P.D. James used it as inspiration for a book, The Black Tower, which was a murder mystery involving her Inspector Dalgleish. It's also been used for a Style Council video. Originally it was located way in from the cliff edge, but over the many years the sea has eroded away more and more of that cliff edge until it was sitting precariously on the edge, and it would only be a matter of time before the cliff that it was underneath it fell away and it fell into the sea. And so they moved it. Sounds so simple, doesn't it? In reality though, it was a major feat of engineering. They dismantled it brick by brick, and moved it in 25 metres further away from the cliff edge, thus ensuring its survival for many years to come. Nowadays it's owned by the Landmark Trust, and they actually let it out for holiday accommodation. It's not cheap, mind you, but then again it's not totally out of reach if you wanted to take a loved one away for a very special weekend, maybe a major wedding anniversary or something like that. Just imagine waking up in a historic building like that, walking across to the windows and looking out to see this view. Amazing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.